Cool, you good to go, man?
Good, man.
Welcome back to the Open Up podcast, everyone, and to episode 45 with former NRL player, former WBF junior welterweight world champ, and now most importantly, one of the leaders in the mental health space with his book and his message about defying the enemy within. Joe Williams, my man. Thank you for doing this.
My pleasure, man. It's always good, and you do podcasts. I do them a fair bit, but when you get someone on Skype, you're sort of sitting and talking to someone, it just makes it a bit more personable, which is a bit more beneficial, I think.
Yeah, man, 100%. Get to read the face, read the emotions in some sort of sense. Most of these episodes start off with childhood, and we'll do a quick summary of that. But can you give me a quick description of yourself as a man or as a human?
Yeah, I guess I'm someone.
My brother.
I'm someone who has had very, very different journeys. My life has taken twists and turns, and forever I thought I was going to be a rugby league player because that's all I wanted to do as a kid. And then I went on the path of boxing, and that was fantastic as well. And I thought I was going to be a boxer, and pushed everything towards that. But now I'm on a path that's completely different. And then with the work that I do around the mental health space, even that's changing. It's evolving, and a lot of what I've done, a lot of what I'm doing now is very, very different to how I started out. So I guess that's human nature. We all evolve, but so in a nutshell, me as a person, I'm a very, very different person to what people perceive me to be. I'm someone who is I'm a very deep thinker, and I've always been. And I guess that's played out emotionally and mentally with a lot of the stuff that I've gone through. So what you see is what you get, but not always what you get is the real me, okay. because I'm a very, very, my sister-in-law actually, she sort of gave me a bit of a razz recently, and she was like, we've never had a decent conversation. And I was like, well, I get that, but I'm someone I'm an extremely shy person. So unless you talk to me, I may not necessarily talk to you. And that's not because I don't like you or I've got anything against you. It's because I'm naturally a shy person. Everything that you see on camera, everything that you see in public, everything that you see around people and big crowds and all that sort of stuff is very trained. Wow. I'm not saying that it's not authentic, because everything I give is authentic. But for me personally, man, I'm the sort of person who would love to sit inside his own house and not go outside. Like, I don't do people real well.
How did you overcome that barrier? Because I know, in the States especially, I think public speaking was the number one fear, even above death. How did you get over that, being someone so shy?
Again, it's been trained into me since I was a kid, with media and so forth. And, I was someone who was lucky enough to be fairly gifted as a young bloke. And I made a junior rep side at, 11 or 12. And it was the first one from our sort of area, the country area. How all those junior rep sides are all bigger guys from the metro teams and, the Sydney bigger areas. So here's this young Aboriginal boy from the bush who made it. And it was and then I was named captain. So, it was the first ever captain from our area, the Riverina, and the first ever, the first time anyone made that junior, that under 12s New South Wales side for 20 or 30 years or something like that. So there was cameras splashed in front of my face since then. And then, I signed my first NRL contract scholarship at 13. So again, there was more cameras, and then I was playing first grade footy at 13 and 14. So there was a lot of cameras then in my face going, here's this kid who's, I guess, what would you call a bit of an enigma. So it's been very, very trained. For the people who know me personally, they know that I don't go outside my box a lot if I don't have to. Okay. And that can be a deficit at times because, you sit your head in your phone all day and, you have conversations that way, which I try and tell people not to do, but, I'm probably one of the worst for it. So, but that's just because of my personality as well. So, when people, there's days where, I hate going on stage and I'm, a public speaker as my job. And I hate doing it because there's days where I just hate people, not because I don't like them. It's just because I just struggle. Like I have, and this is, a big part of my illness. I have fairly severe paranoia. So I think that people are judging me. I think that, so I think that people, are judging me with what I do, what I say. And, if I'm not getting a reaction or the reaction I want or hoped out of a crowd or an audience when I'm speaking, then I automatically think the worst. And that, I'm speeding my words up and I'm trying to get off there because anyway, it's a never ending cycle. Like
out, man. I'm grateful you're doing it, man, because especially having that sort of fear and that being that sort of reserved, you could easily just stay in your box, but the fact that you're pushing your boundaries and breaking those fear barriers to bring this message to people to help them is fucking amazing.
It's forever evolving, there was when I was playing footy at the Rabbitohs, they did a documentary on us called Southside Story, and people didn't realise at the time, but I would be built up with so much anxiety before a game that I would vomit. I wouldn't be able to, I could hear the crowd outside, outside the dressing sheds, and when you're walking down a tunnel, I was just so overwhelmed. And there's a scene where it's on the beginning of Southside Story where it pans to me and I'm in the corner vomiting. And then, people go, so that's what you're talking about. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's, they documented it. I don't make this shit up, here's me on camera, on a massive documentary, vomiting because, man, I'd hate to go out there. I would be terrified to go out in front of a crowd. But then, and this is the I guess the benefits of playing sport when it comes to mental health issues is that you're in the moment. So I played halfback, so the ball was kicked off to me a lot, right? Yeah. So I'd be sitting there dry reaching, almost vomiting when the ball's in the air ready to catch it, and the ball's coming through me and I'm like this, and then I'd catch the ball and then pass it off and it was all gone because I'm in the moment. Yeah. And there's so much in that, and that's what I talk to people about. The challenge of staying in the moment. When we have issues with our mental health, when it comes to depression and anxiety, it's because we're thinking the wrong ways about things. It's our interpretation, and that a lot of the time leads us down a dark path or into a path of anxiety. Yeah,
well, it's nothing to snap you back into the moment like a 110 kg prop running at you, eh?
Man, that's for those guys who remember me playing footy a lifetime ago, I wasn't the most confrontational type player. I didn't like getting dirty on the most of days, the best of days. So but there was, and that's a lot of people don't understand, and that's what I talk about now. Is that has all. I'm someone who's struggled with suicidal ideation from about the age of 13, right?
Wow.
Now, all of my sport and all of the times when I didn't want to play, all of the times when it was a little bit too hard for me, all of the times when, I got a knock around the head and you start to look over your shoulder a little bit, I'm not afraid to say that sort of stuff. That all contributed to my resilience. And then when I get in the boxing ring and you get punched in the mouth a couple of times and you start to see stars and you taste your own blood and you question yourself, do you really want to be in here? That all contributes to resilience and builds on this mental toughness or this mental resilience that hardens us to different situations.
Yeah, well, I think the suicidality or the idealization of it is pretty much like you don't think you can cope with what you're going through. It's either that or you feel like a massive burden. So, that mental toughness, proving to yourself that you can persevere through a struggle is hugely important.
But you don't understand. That's the thing, like you don't prove it to yourself until after the fact.
Yeah.
Because everything, when you're in the fact, is the world's hardest fight. And it doesn't matter if the last 10 times you've got through it were 1,000 times harder. This one right now is the hardest thing that you're experiencing in this moment right now in your life. So, yeah. And it's not that, boxing or rugby league shaped that mental toughness. It's the tips and tools I use and pull on or call on to get me through those times that has made me the person I am.
That's awesome, man. I think wanted to ask you about that whole vomiting story, like playing for the Rabbitohs and hearing the crowd and dry retching. Could you ever be yourself in that environment?
No way, no. I was myself when I was on the field.
Okay.
I was myself when I was on the field. It was a huge proportion of my life I haven't been myself. It isn't that I haven't been authentic. I've been authentic, but I've just been a different part of my authenticness. Like when I was based in the States, I saw a specialist over there, a psych, about there was a point in time when I thought that I had schizophrenia.
Wow.
It was like I was treated for, I was living with 3 or 4 different people in my head. But he contextualized it or explained it to me was that everyone has an inner critic. Everyone has that inner critic. It's just that mine's a little bit, overwhelming at times, and mine's a little bit worse than other people's. That's not discrediting theirs, because other people's inner critic is the worst thing that they go through too. So, I was convinced, man. It was like I'm living with, 2 or 3 or 4 different people, different personas in my head. I thought I had a split personality. I thought, all these types of things. And this is, after years again of understanding and educating myself and going through different therapies. But, when I was living in America, that's literally what I was talking to a doctor about. Is that
scary, man.
I thought I had a split personality. Well, it's not scary. It's not scary. It's only scary if you think it's scary. Yeah. Because I managed to do some pretty incredible things with it, right? So,
like what?
Well, just my sporting career and my creativity and that sort of stuff around, again, around writing and around music and around, all sorts of stuff. So, man, when people talk about mental illness is a negative, my mental illness has taken me to some amazing places.
Yeah.
Right? My mental illness makes up all of who I am. My mental illness wrote a book in about a month to 6 weeks. My first manuscript, my first manuscript I wrote in a month when I was living in America. I wrote 30,000 words, 40,000 words in a month. Because I was on a manic high. And I'd wake up in the morning, get straight on my computer, and I'd just punch out words. Everything that was in my head, I'd just punch it all out. And then, the guy who I was working with over there at the time, Kevin Hines, we'd fly around and hop to different states and different towns, right? So then we'd be on a plane. I'd be nutting it out again, and then we'd go and speak at a school. Then we'd be in the car, and again, I'd be just writing nonstop. And then I'd go home and I'd go to bed at night, and I only sleep 4 to 5 hours in a good night any night. So I'd be up again writing. It was I was writing 18 to 20 hours a day some days.
I've never ever heard anyone be so passionate about their mental illness.
It's made me who I am, man.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Like
man.
That's the thing. Like people see it as a negative, and it wasn't that. And I've got to be very careful about what I say now, is because I was medicated for many, many years, right? And it may seem that I'm chopping and jumping all over the shop, but I was medicated for many years, for bipolar disorder, right? And which I thought was depression first, and then I wasn't treating the mania and anything, all that sort of stuff. So I was wrongly medicated, many, many, many times. But I haven't been medicated for nearly 3 years.
Wow.
And in that time, I said to myself, what would the old people do, as in my ancestors? I'm a First Nation Wiradjuri man. I said, what would our old people have done, right? If they had bipolar disorder, which they didn't because there was no mental illness in traditional times, right? But if they had bipolar disorder, what would they have done? Well, they would have exercised when they were low, which produces the natural endorphins in our head, and they would have meditated when they were high. Now, there's all forms of meditation, Aboriginal meditation and mindfulness that's been around for thousands and thousands of years. Now it's just a buzz, right?
Yeah.
But it's been around for thousands of years with our people. And, I said, well, they would have exercised every day because they were walking everywhere to get their, get places and get what they had to get. And they were always hunting food, and they were always connected with the earth. And then, I said, and they were always eating clean. So, and they meditated, right? So I said, right, maybe that's me. I didn't go cold turkey, but with doctor's help, I slowly reduced my medication, and it took me close to 12 months to get completely off medication. But, it was, 3 years ago I started that journey, and I've been, medication free now for a couple of years, and what this gets me back to my point of, being a tremendous asset. I know my illness isn't a tremendous asset when I'm down in the dumps, and, I'm going through some extremely tough times, but it's a massive, massive asset when I'm manic and coming up with all of these creative ideas.
Yeah.
It's just about managing the two and mixing and managing who I am as a person, and don't let it get out of hand sometimes.
It's a powerful message in itself, man. With your, how you say you connected back to what your people would do, how do you implement your exercise or meditation to sort of ward off that?
Modern exercise, right? Modern exercise. I try and train most days. Again, whilst I would love to say that I'm a marathon runner and I'm fitter than I've ever been, I'm not.
Yeah.
It's because my head tells me that I hate exercise. My head tells me no, sleep in more. My head tells me have Maccas, don't have good. Like I'm a normal person in that point respect, but I know that I have to pay attention to it, because when I'm not well, I usually go back to what's my diet like, what's my exercise routine like, and if they're both not there, then that's why I'm not well, right? Yeah. Again, it's about producing natural endorphins. I say to everywhere I go, the biggest way to manage depression or depressive moments is through exercise and clean eating. All the rubbish that we eat and all the preservatives and sugar and crap that we eat today contributes so much to our mental health. And again, going down the line of education, one of my closest mates, Jay Taki, a colon therapist, and so she talks about the link between the gut and the gut and brain axis. Where the link between gut health and mental health. And once you start to clean your gut health up, that's when the properties of your mental health will start to clear up as well. So, man, it's forever changing. And I always talk about, when we talk about diets, the dude who came up with the paleo diet, he's made himself squillions and squillions, but it's just our old people. It's our ancestors' diet.
Just reverting back to what worked for centuries.
Worked thousands of years. But we're probably not ready yet to say, well, this is the native diet, so we better give it another name,
Yeah.
What nationality are you?
Māori.
Yeah, so you're Māori. So Jay is Māori, right? So she talks a lot about her her old people, the ancestors of how they lived and what they did, right? Again, when we all native people are across the world, we all lived off the land. We all lived at one with each other. Native people across the world, we're like one big family. I spoke at the World Indigenous Suicide Prevention Conference 2 years ago, and it's every 2 years. So the last one was only a couple of months ago. But the first time I sat in that room with all different First Nation people from around the country, it clicked. It's like, it's not mental illness that's killing our people worldwide. It's colonization.
Exactly. 100%, man.
We're struggling to walk in two worlds.
I think that's why you find like a lot of people who are dealing with any sort of struggle or trauma, when they go out and they connect back to the bush or they spend time in the ocean, they feel a sense of calm again because they are connected back to the earth like we're supposed to be.
People call it earthing now.
Yeah.
Right, man. Again, that's another one that our people have been doing for thousands of years. We had to do it because we had no shoes, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, and people don't understand that, us as native people, our mother, right, Mother Earth, even as people now, where do we go when we get sick, or when we're crying, who do we call? If you're lucky enough to have your mother around, you always call your mother or your auntie or your grandmother, right? That's exactly like what our Mother Earth is, It's and we are always taking from Mother. Every day we walk on the ground. Every day we drive our cars on the road where, we're not living these sustainable lives, right? But we're always taking and damaging Mother. When do we ever give back? Yeah. And that's where, that's another conversation again around global warming and climate change and, all the sorts of natural disasters all around the world are all happening from mining the shit out of the earth and Mother just recalibrating, going, you know what, I've had enough of this.
Yeah.
That's when natural disasters happen. But they won't hear it from a brown man.
And I know you were part of that pipeline protest.
I was over there at Standing Rock. Yeah, man, it was something else. Everything you saw on the news, and I said to my parents, I said, I'm going to Standing Rock this weekend. And even the people I was living with over in America, they were like, be careful, haven't you seen the news? Like there's like massive protests and, there's so much violence and anger there. And I said, you know what? I reckon I'll be all right.
Yeah.
Because, and I had no plan when I went. It was like, they were like, what do you mean you've got no plan? Or you've got nowhere to stay? You don't know anyone? What are you going to do? I was just like, you know what? I just have trust that it'll get sorted. I'm not going to go over here and someone's not going to leave me in the lurch. Like First Nation people, we're family. We'll look after each other and someone will look after me. And I had a big Aboriginal flag on my shirt. And I was walking around the camp and, a few thousand people walking around the camp, and the elders and everyone was noticing my shirt, and they were like, "You're our big brother," because my people, Aboriginal people, we're the the oldest civilization on the planet, right? So all these native people, like these elders and people from all around the camp, they were like, we can't believe that you've come over here to support us and help us. You're family to us. So man, I was ushered around like a king for a few days. It was beautiful because I wrote a couple of articles on it as well. Is that it was just like one massive big ceremony of family. You never went hungry. If anyone needed anything, it was shared. If you didn't have dinner that night, then there was 10 different campsites that would provide you with something to eat. It was absolutely nothing like it was being portrayed in the media. It was it was one of the most beautiful moments that I've ever had, and I met people there that I'm still close with, that I still keep in contact with.
That's
so,
awesome.
Mate, it's like they said, it's humbling, and it's it's family on the other side of the world.
I think I want to go back to you being this super talented kid, like going into rep footy and then getting contract or scholarship super early in your career. How did you manage the pressure of being someone so talented? Obviously, you would have had so many expectations on you.
Yeah, it probably all happened a little bit too easy. And the expectation come from me. It wasn't expectation from others. It was expectation from me. When I got to Sydney, I was playing in the under-18s, and I thought that I'd go straight into higher grades, and so the expectation was from me. So I was always getting let down by my own expectations, not by everyone else's expectations. And like I said, how it got there, it probably come too easy. There were times where I was selected for a New South Wales side, like a state side, that kids trial for their school team, then trial for their district team, then trial for their regional team, which then go to a state carnival to trial for the state team. I got injured. All I had to do was write a letter to be picked.
What?
Right? Like these little things like that. Again, everything just came too easy to me, and that's why I'm. Even with my kids now, like my oldest boy, he shows a bit of ability when it comes to he plays at AFL, plays Aussie rules. So I said, mate, you got to work hard. Don't matter how many rep teams you get picked for, or you got to work your backside off, because there were guys that I played with in the NRL that I was more talented than, but they worked harder than me.
Yeah.
So they had the longer careers. They were the first ones picked, right? Because again, I expected things because I was a talented kid. I was a talented kid, man, and if I needed something to do on the field, I could do it. So there was a negative to that, right? There was a negative that there was an expectation because I was talented, but then you get down there and these coaches like, well, we don't give a shit how talented you are. You don't work hard, you don't get picked. Simple. It was like, whoa, what's this? So if I had my time again, I just worked my backside off, and I didn't learn how to work hard and train hard until I started playing boxing. We really don't really play boxing, but until I started boxing.
Yeah, you can't fake that, man.
Well, on a footy field, you got 12 other guys around you where you can hide, right? In a boxing ring, if you haven't done the work, and so on the footy field, I was talented enough to get out of a tough situation with some footwork or with a nice pass or something like that, right? But in the ring, so much of it comes to technique and strategy, and the first thing that goes in a boxing ring is your lungs, right? You get tired before anything. Yeah. So before anything, I had to work hard because every time I got in the ring, as a professional boxer, what happens majority of the time is that you box as an amateur first, and then you go over to the pros. And I didn't have any amateur fights, and I just went straight into the pros. So every time I got in the ring with someone, no matter if they were better than me or not better than me, they had more experience than me. So they knew their way around the ring, and nerves didn't play a part because they'd been doing it for so long. And they were, they'd sparred, 100 rounds, and the more of the deeper we're in my boxing career, these guys are, been boxing since kids, and had 20 or 30 fights, and again, and then as a pro, 15 or so fights, and then as an amateur, 30 or 40 fights. And so every time I got in the ring, I was always behind the 8 ball when it comes to experience. Yeah. Where a situation had happened, and these guys I was fighting against, they've been through it 20 times. So they knew how to get out of it. Where
so
for me, it was new. I just had to work hard. So I made it my thing that when I was boxing, that anyone who got in the ring with me, I was fitter than. And I had to do that. And I had to learn how to do that, because it's nothing I ever did as a rugby league player. Now, if I had my time again, I should have boxed before I played football.
Yeah.
Because boxing taught me how to train hard. Boxing taught me how to be mentally tough. Boxing taught me how to be resilient in tough times. Rugby league, it all came too easy.
Yeah. How did you, like, obviously being this kid who was so talented, wanted to be a rugby league player your whole life, how did you go with relinquishing that identity as the rugby league player when you ended that?
There was some ego involved. And then, if I'm honest, it was when and I'm just writing an article about it now, actually. It was when I give up the drink.
Yeah.
So, as we know or may not know, or have our heads in the sand, we know that rugby league, professional sport, has a culture that's fairly, heavy around, partying and so forth. And I was that guy, Once I realised that I had an issue with alcohol and drugs, I gave it all up. Got some help with doing that, and it was when I wasn't partying. I realised that in the last couple of years of my rugby league career, I had absolutely nothing in common with the guys that I was playing footy with. Wow. As I've told you, all my life I've been this really introverted person, or I don't like being that, that extrovert who's out in the public eye, and I hate public attention. Again, with the paranoia on when someone's coming up to ask me for a photo or an autograph when I was playing the NRL, I was paranoid that they had something against me, or I was doing something wrong, and so it was really tricky. Once I got rid of all the substance, I had to deal with this. I had to deal with all that paranoia. I had to deal with the noise that was speaking to me in a negative way, telling me to end my life, all of these sort of things. So, and I realized that I didn't have anything in common with the boys. The only thing I had in common with my teammates was football and partying. Now, I wasn't partying anymore, and I wasn't enjoying my footy anymore. So, and it was my choice at the end of 2008 season. After, it was a pretty poor season. It was, again, I was just going through the motions, and I was having a massive problem with prescription pills, and because I was just so mentally cooked. Yeah. I was trying to put myself out of it all the time, and I just hated football. I hated being let down all the time. But again, I wasn't looking in the mirror. I wasn't the one working hard. So I take full responsibility for every setback that I've had playing rugby league, because it wasn't me that was working hard.
That's awesome, man. That's the first step to change, hey, is accepting the responsibility.
In anything, and I think you learn responsibility. People think that it's an expectation. Now, I'm a parent to 5 kids, right? Now, so my life, again, with bipolar disorder and ups and downs of professional sport, I was married, separated, repartnered, had another. So married with 2 children, separated, repartnered, another child, separated, repartnered again, another 2 children, right? So I got five kids to 3 relationships. not ideal, but the Brady Bunch wasn't just a movie, man. You know, we make it work. The first two children, I was getting clean and sober.
Okay.
So my oldest boy, I wasn't a great father to, because I was always out partying, you know, drinking ridiculous amounts, copious amounts of drugs. The second one, it was, you know, I was a mess, because that's when I was getting clean and I was clearing everything up. You know, then I had the marriage breakdown and separation, repartnered again, and I wasn't in a great place. You know, I was playing footy over in France, and just one of those things, you know, like things weren't fantastic in the relationship, and she was pregnant. She wanted to come home, and came home, and I was living in a place where I didn't particularly like, and you know, it was just one of those things. It was, again, try being an introvert in a town where you know absolutely no one and you don't want to go anywhere.
So I was
language. Well, that was even when I come back to Australia. I was living in a place where I hated, because I didn't know anyone. I didn't like anyone. I didn't like myself. And then that relationship broke down, and then, you know, my suicide attempt, and you know, and then you know, things got back on track with you know, I'm lucky enough to meet the girl who I'm with now, and you know, things are on a much better path, mate. Brilliant. So it's been ups and downs and all around the place. But even as a dad, you know, I could never be left alone with my kids.
Wow.
And it wasn't because, and I've only just this is the first time I'm actually saying this publicly. Because I didn't know it. I didn't realize, right? So I would make every excuse up in the world to the mothers of my children that I couldn't have my kids by myself. Not because I didn't like my kids, but because I didn't like the dad that I was. I didn't like me as a father. But it's been years, and I'm thankful now that, you know, and this isn't by choice again, because I'll try and manipulate my way out of it, again, because of that, you know, those demons that always creep up. But now my partner, she works, and I've got to stay at home for the kids, where I'm on the road, you know, 300 days a year. I've got to stay at home with the kids while she's at work now. So I've got no choice but to be a dad, and, you know, to be a dad to a 4-year-old little boy and a 1-year-old little baby, you know, so a little baby girl. And I'm learning how to do that, you know, and like I said, I didn't realize till recently is that it wasn't that I was a poor dad. It was just that I didn't like the dad who I was, and I had to work on that. Yeah. So I'm continually growing, and you know, my kids and I, you know, the oldest two, we probably don't have the world's best relationship. You know, they love their dad. Don't get me wrong, they love their dad, and I love them more than anything in the whole entire world. It's just that there's probably a little bit that we've got to get through and work through as continuously as broken families do. Yeah. My middle child, he lives with his mum here in Dubbo, where I live. And, you know, it's good because we're starting to get a better relationship now. And again, that's just through spending more time with each other. Where the relationship wasn't fantastic because, well, it's my work or lack of, you know. So it's easy to point the finger at everyone else, but when you start pointing the finger at yourself and you actually start to do the work on yourself, that's when you become better as a person, I think, and that's when we grow.
Exactly. And when you're self-aware and honest with yourself, you can unearth some shit that you buried for years and decades, man.
Man, you said one word. The key to it is honesty. Because we lie to ourselves every day of the week. Well, I don't know about you, but I do. Yep. Like we lie to ourselves out of fear and out of dealing with factual stuff. You know, like, I wasn't a good dad. Who does that reflect on? Me. Holy shit, what have I got to do? You know, like, how do I work on that? You know, and there's different reasons as to why that is, and again, it's an ongoing process that I'm committed to now to continue to work on. I'm not perfect. Yeah. I'm not perfect as a dad. And I've probably been one of those dads that try and play it a little bit perfect, you know, for the world to see. But I've been a little bit honest with myself lately, and it's not that it's not that I was bad as a dad. It's that I could do better.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. It's super powerful. Have you forgiven yourself for like being the dad, well, not quite the dad you wanted to be to your oldest two?
Say that again, sorry?
Have you forgiven yourself for not being the dad you wanted to be to your older two?
No, if I'm honest, no. No. And you know, that again, that's an ongoing. Yeah, it is. Because, you know, the oldest boy's the oldest is a boy. You know, he's 14, and he's been forced to grow up, and be the man of the house. You know, and then there's my daughter, who's the second one, the second oldest. She's a feisty thing, and she tells me how it is.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, we had words recently, and the thing that was most upsetting about it wasn't what she said, but what she said was the truth. That's what hit the hardest the most. You know, my boy said, "Are you all right, Dad?" You know, she said she's not so great things. And I said, man, I can't blame her, because it's the truth. You know, and again, it's, you know, all my 5 kids are brilliant young people that, you know, as all parents say, and they're all very different. All very, very different kids, which is great. You know, I've got an older boy who's very, very emotionally intelligent. You know, he handles his feelings well, and you know, he's an actor and a sports person as well. So, and then my daughter, you know, she's an actor as well, and you know, she's probably a little bit harder to handle. She's not hard to handle. She's just feisty. She's just navigating her way through life as a young sort of pre-teenager. And then, you know, my 3 youngest ones, again, they're all very, very different, all very different kids. So I think they're tests for me to continue to grow as a person. That's because cool. If you're all the same, then we get stuck in educating the same behaviours, right?
I think the most powerful thing about that, or that what you said about your daughter having words with you, is the fact that, I don't know if it actually happened in real life, but it sounds like you didn't get defensive and immediately try to protect yourself out of ego. You just took it on the chin. And I think when you can accept criticism and not be defensive and not retort back with some hurtful words or actions, then that's where you find true growth.
And that's honesty, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, it's, you know, if somebody, and I'm the sort of person and this has come with growth as a person, as an individual, but I'm the sort of person, when somebody has a negative thing to say or do about me, then I respect what they say. Just sometimes I just don't agree with it. I very rarely will fight back and try and prove that I'm not that. Yeah. Because that gets nowhere. You know, I'm the sort of, you know, and in that moment, in that conversation, I said, you know what, you're right. So, you know, I had to wear it. I had to wear it on the chin. Well, it's not brave. It's the right thing, right?
Most people couldn't do that, man.
And that's where we've got to get better as people, right? And so many people talk to me about my speaking about what I do with my mental health. They're like, you know what, that's so brave. I'm like, no, it's not brave. We just got to do that. You know, everyone's got to be like that. They're just emotions. We just got to connect to them and talk about them. Simple.
Yeah.
You know, it's obviously not a simple process, but we got to get to that point. And if we're being honest and when we stuff up, admit it, you know, get checked on it, that's when we grow as people, you know, and that's when the person who's checking us can then look at it and go, well, you know what, you know, he's admitted he stuffed up there. So, you know, I don't know. There's growth in it for everyone, I guess.
That's powerful, man. I think when I go back to, you mentioned fleetingly your attempt at suicide. Do you want to walk us through that? And then I guess I'll ask you some quick questions. I want to make sure I'm respectful of your time.
No, that's right, man. You know, when you've got content or a conversation in your ear, guessing and questioning, and every decision you make, every you question the way everyone looks at you. You question every conversation that you have, and then on the back of it being an extremely negative conversation that you're not good enough, you're never going to amount to anything, you should die.
Yeah.
You know, thoughts and plans and ideas of suicide from a young age, 13, 14-year-old, right? And the day that it all come to a head, I just had enough. I just couldn't fight anymore. You know, I'd fought for 15, 20 years, and I just couldn't do it anymore. Now, you know, there were many times and many tough times that I've gotten out of that I did grip on and dig in and fight through those tough times. But this one day, a particular day, I just felt I couldn't, you know, and everything inside my head was telling me that I had to die. It's not that I wanted to die. It's just that everything inside my head was telling me I had to. So I didn't see it as a choice. And people talk about why did you try and end your life? Why did you want to die? And I'm like, I didn't want to die, man. I didn't want to die, but I thought the only logical thing that I could do to make it all go away was to end my life. The only way I could make the pain go away was to end it all. Because you're so... It's so common.
Kev talks about as well, hey?
It's so common, man. Is that it's so common that in all the people that I've talked to in surviving suicide, it's the same common thread. You don't want to die. You feel that the only way to end the pain is to not be here anymore, because you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, you know, and seeing 5 years ahead or even 5 days ahead is too painful. You just can't see it. So, you know, and again, I was sitting on the shower floor, more or less flipping a coin in my head, thinking that I had to die. Like thinking, should I do it? Should I not? If I flipped the coin 100 times in my head that day and it landed on don't do it 99 times, it only had it land on yes once for me to be convinced that I didn't belong here anymore. And it was like assurance. You know, like every time I'd say, no, don't do it, it'd come back, yes, you got to do it. Yes, you don't deserve to be here. Yes, you're a burden to everyone. You know, if you have the thought of, I've got to pick up and call mum. No, don't call mum. Mum's going to judge you. She doesn't understand. Why would you tell her? Like you're to and fro with your own head. You're having a conversation with your own head. And I literally made my mind up, and I got out of the shower and I wrote letters to my kids, you know, apologizing that, again, that remorse, right? Apologizing for everything that happened, apologizing that I couldn't be the dad that I promised them I'd be, apologizing that I'd never get to see my daughter walk down the aisle, you know, all the remorse of what you want to do in your life. If you ever need me, just look up, you know, and one of the important things I talk about when I speak is that I folded my suicide note. I moved my telephone out of the road to put it down. When we're talking about wanting people to reach for help, that is an important point, because I moved my phone out of the road. I couldn't pick it up to call anyone. If there was 100, 500 phone numbers in my phone, I couldn't even pick it up to call anyone.
Yeah, we're scared someone's going to judge you, man.
100%. Right? So I moved it out of the road to put my note down, and I had an overdose that should have killed me. No. I laid back on the bed to think that I'd never wake up. And for me, it wasn't about whether I did the right thing or not, because I was content with what I did. Because in that moment, when people ask me, what about your kids? Didn't you think of your kids? Yeah, I thought of my kids, but I thought my kids hated me. What about your parents? Didn't you think of your mum, your dad? Yeah, I thought of them, but I thought they didn't care, because that's what my head was telling me. Exactly. So when they talk about selfishness of suicide, this is an important point, right? When they talk about people are so selfish when they end their own life because they take their own pain away, but they push their pain onto other people, all right? From someone who's been there, who's danced with the devil, who's danced with death, the only thought that's in your mind is that you're doing everyone a favor. So you're trying to do the right thing by them. You're not being selfish, because being selfish should be only thinking about yourself, where all you're doing is thinking about everyone else.
Yeah. It's not until you survive that and you see how much pain you cause people and
you
how
see
much
reality.
pain.
You see reality, right? And again, like I talk about how depression is like a cloud in front of our face. It just blindfolds you. It just, not that you can't see, it actually, not that you can't see physically or emotionally or mentally, it robs you. It robs you of everything that is true. Reality. It robs you of reality.
It does, man. And you can get stuck in that by yourself, and then if you're someone who's as reserved as you are, it just gets worse and worse.
Well, here's the thing. This is what people don't understand, is that when we're having these tough times, it sits inside our head, and when it sits inside our head, it just goes spirals around and gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Then we turn to substance. You know, I really thought about it recently. Alcohol and drugs are depressants.
Yep.
So why do we use alcohol and drugs when we're depressed? Like we're expecting it to help us. You know, again, that's how clouded the mind gets. Again, it robs you of reality, of anything. Like the most logical thing, exercise and diet. Eat well, exercise, go and talk to people. Do you think you can talk about that? You think about that? No way. It robs you.
Yeah, exactly, man. Well, I know that firsthand, and like this, you're talking about, you had that phone right there, but you moved it out of the way, and not being able to call someone because you thought people would judge you. That's why it's so important now, and that's why I love the work of like people like you and Kev and Are You OK, trying to get these conversations out there. Because I had a breakdown while I was doing FIFO, man, and one of the guys who helped me or stopped me from attempting a second time, as soon as I left that site, I didn't speak to him for about 6 months. Now, he was one of the most smiley, outgoing dudes I knew, and a couple months ago, he took his life, bro. Yeah.
You know, I did a podcast recently with Heart on My Sleeve. You heard of those guys? Yep.
Yeah, they're awesome.
And one of the quotes that he took as a grab for social media, and it's I say it everywhere I go, is that we wait for people to tell us that they're not well. Now, Living with the tremendous work that they do, their slogans, it ain't weak to speak. No, it's not weak to speak. No. But it is the hardest thing that you could ever think of and do when you're in those tough times. So other people who sit back and go, I didn't notice it. I didn't I didn't even know that they were doing it tough. Well, we don't know because we're not paying attention.
Yeah.
Right? We don't know because we're not paying attention. Now, there was a fairly prominent person who took their life recently, and I won't say the name, but, looking back over the social media posts, it was all there. It was all there. People might say it was there was mysterious messaging,
Yeah.
but it was all there. Every single person who ends their life, suicide prevention starts in our family homes. You don't start with the people who get millions of dollars to research about it. It starts in our family homes. When your wife or your husband or your son or your daughter, your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, when they're not having a good day, we know. Exactly. And we think, and we judge them. We judge them straight away. Instead of going, what's up, man? Is everything all right? No, you're not okay. I can see that you're not because I see your behaviors, and your behaviors have been like this for a week. So let's talk about it. Right? It starts in our footy clubs. We all go to football training. We all go to netball training, and especially with guys, what's going on with that bloke? We judge. 100%, we judge straight away.
Especially in FIFO, because I spent the best part of a decade doing FIFO, and especially with that group, they become your family, man. If you're starting to get a little bit emotional or you're out of sorts, it's very much a laugh, point at you, and what's wrong with you, man? Come on, get it together. And so you just fucking go into your shell even more. Yeah,
100%, right? And that's where we're going wrong. That's where we're going wrong. So that little snippet or that grab that I spoke about that was used in that podcast, it was about let's pay attention to behaviors.
Yeah.
Let's start to have a look at people. Let's start to have a listen to people's words. What are they meaning by those words? How are they saying those words? What are their mannerisms when they're saying those words? Are they turning up late to different things? Are they not answering their phone? Are they not replying to text? Pay attention to that. I can tell through somebody's messaging in a text message when they're not well. Why? Because I'm clued onto it. Because I deal with it, a lot during, every day. But I pay attention.
Yeah, and because you care. That's a massive part, man. Is caring.
You know what I care about? What I care about the most is that people don't experience what I have.
Yeah.
Because
you don't have to.
Exactly, man. Exactly, right? Now this is where I get a lot of people offside, right? Is that people who struggle with depression and anxiety don't necessarily have a choice that they are doing that. But if they are struggling or suffering over an extended period of time, that is a choice. And people question me, what do you mean it's a choice? If you're doing it hard or you're not, what do you mean is a choice? Well, it's exactly in what I said, right?
Yeah.
If you're doing it hard, if you're struggling over a certain period of time, it means you're not paying attention enough to your wellness. It means you're not doing the things that will make you well. It means you're having shit toxic relationships. It means you're not exercising. It means you're going out and you're having benders. Man, don't sit here and tell me that you're struggling with depression if you're still out partying all weekend. All right, let's start to make some choices to clean your life up.
That's exactly it, man. And I don't think you should worry about getting anyone offside with that. That's the truth.
I don't worry about them because at the end of the day, it's the truth. And the ones who are getting offside about it are the ones who aren't doing the work.
Yeah.
Right? So it reflects on them. Oh, what do you mean I'm making a choice in it? Well, if you're not doing anything about it, then you're making a choice.
Yeah. I know when I skip my meditation or my morning flow, my morning routine, I start feeling depressed, man, 100%.
Yeah.
And as soon as I go back to that, as soon as I go back to what I know what works, it's gone.
Well, if you know it works, why get away from it? Like that's how deluded we are as humans. Sometimes we're like, you know what, I'm gonna do X, Y, Z because that works for me, but I might just throw in an ABC to see if it's different. Well, right?
Yeah.
And then we go, oh, how did I get here? Like, man, it's because you're not paying attention, right?
That's it, man.
So, wellness is an easy thing, but it takes work.
Yeah.
That's all. And if you're
Oh, lost you, brother.
You got me again?
Yep. Sorry, what were you saying? Wellness
I said wellness is an easy thing to do, right? But it just takes work.
Yeah, 100%, man.
So if you're not working at it, then who's at fault? You are.
Have you forgiven yourself for that attempt?
Have I forgiven myself? I see. This brings you into another good conversation. Regret.
Yeah.
Right. Do you have regret over trying to attempt your life? No, I don't. Do you have regret over leaving a fantastic contract and, living over on the other side of the world in France, potentially going to have a great life over there? Do you regret doing that? Do you regret leaving, children behind in relationships? And here's the thing, I don't have any regrets in my whole life. Not because I'm selfish and think that I did everything the right way, but I'll tell you how I think about it. Anything that you regret in your entire life, do you have regrets?
Me?
Yeah.
No, I think I've worked through everything in the last 6 months, man. It's been a hard 6 months.
I want to tell you a tip, right? I want to tell you something. Is that anyone who deals with regrets, this is what I speak to them about, all right? Is that think about it. If you regret something, you're regretting something or a choice or a decision you made in the past. If you go back to that moment when you make that decision to turn left or right or to move home to Australia or to leave a relationship, if you go back to that exact moment where you made that decision, it was everything that you wanted. It was 100% the decision and choice you wanted to do. So you can't regret it because it's everything that you wanted. Right? Now, how do we regret things that we 100% want? Right? It just doesn't make sense. So now the outcome mightn't be fantastic, but here's what we have to do. We have to learn from those outcomes. Now, some of the outcomes may have negative situations come from it, so that's when we have to work through it. Yeah. We have to do the work, do the therapy, do whatever it is, do the work to make it right. Yeah. And
I feel like if you're in a position where you're doing something like what you're doing, where you're really providing value to people and changing people's lives and making them better, if you're working towards getting better yourself, then you can always look back at something that you regret and forgive yourself for it because you know it's made you the person you are now, but it's also propelling you on to help people down the track.
Yeah. My suicide attempt, you talked about that. My suicide attempt was the hardest day I've ever been through in my entire life, without doubt. The hardest, most emotional, mentally challenging day I've ever been through in my entire life. Yet it's given me the biggest rewards. So how can I regret any of that?
It's given me this message, man.
It's given me this message. It's put me on this path. You know what? I talk about our ancestors a lot, the old people. The old people put me on this path. The old people kept me alive that day. So they didn't say, right, you thought you were going to be a rugby league player forever. Now we're going to turn you into a boxer. Now you think you go right at boxing? I'm going to put this little thing called a suicide attempt in there where you're going through these massive mental challenges just so you can be put on the right path. Because you're not in charge, Joe. We are. I always say that our only responsibility in life is acceptance.
That's
right?
Cool.
The old people, they choose the path, man. Whatever your higher power is, whatever your higher belief is, they choose the path. So you have to hand it over to them. When there's a tough situation, it's how you deal with that tough situation. What is this test? What is it? I'm doing it tough right now, but what is this test? It's going to reveal itself soon. I just got to be patient, hand it over, not worried about it too much. Just do the best I can right now.
Yeah.
It all works out.
And if they give you that test or that lesson and you keep failing it, they'll keep giving it to you until you pass.
100%, right? So again, why does this always keep happening to me?
Yeah.
It's because you're not learning from it, right? It's pretty simple.
Yep, that's probably the best quote so far.
I'm using that one, all right?
Yep. I'll ask you a couple quick questions and then we'll
you're right.
end it my way.
You're right.
What would you, obviously knowing what you've been through, the whole growing up and having this anxiety, suicide idealization from 13, bipolar, the drugs and alcohol, the suicide attempt, and the stuff with your children. We know you've been through a lot, but what would you say the quality of your life is like now?
Man, I find gratitude in everything I do.
That's awesome.
Like my life could be a hell ton worse. Like I'm alive. I shouldn't be.
Yeah.
I travel the country every day of the week. Right? The fact that I get to open my eyes and take a breath shows gratefulness. I live a great quality of life, man. Yeah, I still do it. I still do it tough, but I don't sit and harp on about it. If I'm doing it tough, I do the work to get out of it, right? Because, and again, here's something that challenges people's thoughts. When we're in these tough moments, we need people to help us. But who's the person who's going to help you the most? You are. You are. You got your own back. Because you know what? When your best mate has got he's got a date on Friday night with the hottest chick in town, he ain't there for you. Right? You're the only one who's got your back.
Yeah.
So in the tough times, we got to stand up too. And I get that, we are a little pretentious at times and we think, we can't pull our own socks up and that sort of stuff. Well, yes, we can. Because there's going to be times in your life when you got no other choice but to learn and to grow. So you got to do that.
That's cool, man. What have you added to your life or removed from it to improve the quality of it?
A conversation with a therapist in Wagga changed my whole aspect of thinking. Right? He said, because I was having some issues with a negative person in my life, and he said, here's what you do. Remove anything or anyone that's negative. If you got to move towns, if you got to change your number, who's the one who's getting hurt in all this? Well, I am. So do what's good for you and remove anything and anyone that's having negative impact on your life. Because if you deserve to have the best, to be the best, and you're letting these negative influences in your life, then that's you messing up, not them. Yeah, exactly. So when the day I started to do that, and I get sometimes that there's toxic people in our lives and we engage with them when we don't want to, and then we walk away, pulling our hair out because, they got me again. Like we just got to be stronger and just, January 26th, Australia Day is a huge one for Aboriginal people in this country, right? It's a very hurtful time for Aboriginal people in this country. Yet I promised myself this January 26th, this Australia Day, I ain't engaging in no racism. I ain't engaging in no negative behaviour, because at the end of the day, the education's out there now. It ain't my job to educate people anymore. It's their job. If they want to be dumb and be left behind, so be it.
Yeah, and just engaging in that negativity, man. Law of attraction, you're just going to get what you put out.
100%. 100%, right? If you're waking up in a negative mindset, then that's what you're going to attract.
Yeah, super powerful, my man. I guess last question: with everything that you've been through some pretty hectic stuff. How do you see yourself using that to help others? You just going to keep continuing down this route with the speaking, or do you have some sort of higher purpose?
Who knows, man? Who knows? You know, I'm a big believer in there's no such thing as the future. You know, we always plan for the future to be better and to be bigger and, you know, to do better things.
It would be amazing if people lived like that.
Man, there's no such thing as the future. Tomorrow might not even happen. You know, Donald Trump's in power of America. We could be all gone tomorrow. You know, it's, you know, like, man, the only thing we've got as people is our past.
Yeah.
All right. We talk about having, and this was come from a fantastic conversation with one of my respected elders. And he said, there's no such thing as the future. We don't even have the present. The only thing we've got is the past. And I said, what do you mean we don't have the present? And he said, we've only got a moment of presence, and then in an instant it becomes the past. So everything that we have to learn to be a better person has already been done. All the smart things in our world, because our world is only getting worse because we're trying to recreate it. Now, all the smart ways of life with climate change, with eating, with exercise, with everything, it's already been done. So we just got to connect to that.
Yeah.
You know, what happens for me as a person, I don't know. What happens for me with a business? Do I have a vision? Yeah, I've got a vision. It's to grow. It's to I'm starting to do more and more camps on country with young kids,
cool.
and adults as well, because it's our adults that are the ones who are hurting our kids. You know, not physically or anything like that with abuse, just through our own traumas that we're carrying. So. Yeah, just grow as a business. You know, I'd like a presence in every state, because if I'm on the road, you know, 320 odd days a year, then there's only one of me, and it's only getting busier. And the fact that, you know, it doesn't show, and people say you must be good at what you do because you're busy and you're getting more busy. No, that doesn't show that. What it shows is that the country's hurting.
Yeah.
That's all it shows. You know, people talk about it in the mental health space. Can't wait. I'm having a bigger and better 2019. I'm going to be bigger and reach more people and do amazing things. You know what? I'm trying to work myself out of a job, because if I'm having to go around and empower people to not take their own life, it means that the suicide rates are climbing.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm trying to work myself out of a job. And I'll continue to do that every day. Well, you know, if I'm getting busier and bigger and I'm exploding into all these new communities, then it just means that more people are hurting.
Yeah.
That's all. It means that we're not doing a good enough job.
I guess to wrap up, brother, I just want to acknowledge you for, first of all, taking the time to do this. I know you're a busy man, so thank you so much. But most importantly, for being someone with this sort of platform, for opening up and being brave and sharing your message all over the country, all over the world. It's super powerful. It's super important. And I'm glad that there's someone like you doing this, especially with that Aboriginal connection, because I know your people need you 100%, my man.
Here's the thing. All people need us.
Yeah. Because
our people are the longest cultural people on the planet. We're the very first civilization of people. So everyone needs to learn from that. You know, like
100%.
Us as Aboriginal people in Australia, we're the first people of this country. Everyone who lives in Australia, we're your people too. We're not different. It's just that we got a hell of a lot of knowledge that was dismissed for so many years. Let's start connecting to that. you know, and even our people are lost. You know, I ain't saying I ain't no spiritual guru. Even our people are lost. All right, so we gotta help each other connect. We gotta help each other get back on a path and get back on track to living in a bigger and broader community with more love. Because if we don't have love, the opposite of love's hate. So if we don't have love, we've got more hate. And again, I'm just about sharing love, if I'm honest. Getting people to respect each other. You know, all of my sessions are sessions that are based around 5 key aspects and key values that I've lived with since I was a kid, living with love, care, respect, humility, and compassion. You know, awesome. Showing empathy for people and caring for everything and everyone with spirit.
Oh, well. Thank you so much, my man. It means the world that you did this. Absolutely does. And I hope
Pleasure, brother. Pleasure, brother. If I can help anyone, get on my website, which I'm sure you'll share anyway, yep. www.joewilliams.com.au.
Cool. I'll link it in the show notes, brother. You have a good day, eh?
Take it easy, my man. See ya.
Ciao.